We are going to be going over my official winter forecast for 2025 to 2026, as it does look like this winter is still going to be a very big winter compared to past years. This has changed a little bit since the last winter forecasts that I did, especially since we're getting a little bit closer to winter, so we're now starting to understand a little bit more about what we will see this winter, and this is my official one, so make sure to stay tuned till the end so that way you guys have a good idea about what to expect this winter. And we'll first start off by taking a look at the NOAA outlook in terms of the water temperatures in the eastern Pacific, and you can see how it does show us currently in a La Nina as of right now, at least a weak one, and that is something that we're going to keep an eye on over the next few months, as it does look like this weak La Nina is going to continue through November, December, and I even expect it to continue into the second half of winter, including February and parts of March, before it does look like we're going to go right back to a neutral phase after that. But it does look like most of the winter will either be in a weak La Nina or even a neutral phase, and that's why I like to consider it being on the edge between a neutral phase and a weak La Nina, which is what we're expecting for this winter. The first thing I want to look at is going to be our temperatures. You guys can see how we are expecting below normal temperatures for a pretty large portion of the United States. Where you see this light blue, that's slightly below average. This dark blue is below average. And then this pink color is much below average. So if you do live in this blue or pink color, we want you to make sure you're ready for this winter, as it does look like much of those areas will be on the colder side of things in terms of our temperatures. And then we also do expect above normal temperatures across areas of the Southwest, and you can kind of see how that's been changing a little bit. And this is mainly given the fact that I do actually think the jet stream will come on into the Pacific Northwest, and this is why I think we're actually going to be trending a little bit cooler than normal up there, so the above normal temperatures will not be as far north, I don't think. But you guys down there in California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas should still be keeping an eye out for that, as it does look like this winter will be a little bit more on the mild side of things in terms of our temperatures. And I also do think there's a good chance we get some of that warm air down there into southern Texas. And then, like I said, we also got to watch the pink and the blue colors, as it does look like this winter is going to be a very cold one in terms of the amount of Arctic blasts that we're expecting. And then the next thing I want to look at is precipitation. You guys can see that we are expecting above normal precipitation for a pretty large portion of the United States as well. And once again, you guys can tell how this has changed a little bit since my last winter forecast, and this is mainly given the fact that the jet stream, like I said, will probably move on into the Pacific Northwest and then dip down like it normally does. And this is why I do think the Pacific Northwest will actually be trending a little bit above normal. And then of course that does continue to be the case even across areas of the Ohio Valley, deep south, and even across much there of the East Coast. But we also still do expect there to be some drier than normal conditions back over there towards California, Nevada, even down there into Arizona, New Mexico, and parts there of Texas. So like I said, you guys down there in the Southwest need to make sure you guys are ready for a dry and mild winter, while you guys up here in the Ohio Valley and northern United States should be ready for a very snowy winter, as we do also expect there to be some pretty cold temperatures mixed on in. The next thing to look at is going to be severe weather, and once again, I know people don't really think about severe weather very much when they're thinking about winter, but I just want you guys to understand that we can still get some severe weather to happen in the winter months, and you guys can see that severe weather is still looking like a big possibility for parts there of the deep south. I don't think the severe weather is going to be nearly as big of a concern for areas farther north, especially since we're looking at a colder than normal winter, which will make it a lot harder for severe weather to get ongoing. But regardless of that, we still can't rule out maybe a severe weather event or two as far north as Chicago, but we're mainly concerned about the areas down here in the deep south where we are looking at a near normal winter in terms of temperatures and precipitation. So that's why I do think down here across the Gulf Coast will be a little bit more favorable this year in terms of severe weather. So make sure you guys down here in the deep south are ready for that. And then one new thing that I did add to this winter forecast just to make it really cool is my snowfall forecast. What I want you guys to keep in mind about this is that this is more than likely going to be somewhat off as we get into the winter. This is not exactly how much snow you're going to see, and like I said, this is more than likely going to be completely wrong, so do not have this be your snowfall totals. Just, have it be a good idea about how much snow you could see. But like I said, this is obviously not going to be exactly how much snowfall you can see, since there can be a lot of things that influence how much snow you see and also where that snowfall occurs. And you guys can see that down here in the deep south, we aren't really expecting a lot of snowfall this year. Little to no snowfall is expected for areas in this gray color, which mainly includes areas across the extreme western coast and even down here into the southern United States, where we're not really expecting very much snowfall. And like I said, that might be a little bit off, given the fact that if there is a cold shot that does make it farther down south, we actually might get a little bit of snowfall to occur in some of these areas, especially like Texas and New Mexico. But like I said, though, it is still looking like it's going to be like that for the most part this winter. And then the next area we got is the 1 to 3 inches. You guys can see that areas from Arizona, parts there of California, especially areas just to the west of the Sierra Nevadas, and then down there into the deep south, 1 to 3 inches of snow appears possible. So definitely make sure you guys are ready in that area, as you guys are still expected to get some pretty good snowfall this year in terms of your guys' averages. And then the next area we got is the 6 to 12 inches. This is where it starts to get a little bit more concerning, and this is also where we cannot rule out the chance for even a couple of snowstorms to occur, as 6 to 12 inches of snow does appear like a pretty good guess in terms of how much snowfall you see. And like I said, that will probably be somewhat off this winter, but we just want you guys to keep in mind that it is looking like it's going to be a little bit snowier for you guys in terms of how much snowfall you're going to see. And then the next area we got is the 12 to 24 inch range. That goes from the Four Corners region, especially where those 4 states line up, all the way back over there towards areas of the Mid-Atlantic and even parts there of the East Coast. We'll likely see anywhere between 12 to 24 inches of snow. And like I said, depending on how everything plays out, we might get a little more, we might get a little less, but from what we're seeing, it does look like this area will be above normal in terms of snowfall. And then here's where it starts to get concerning, okay, is this 24 to 30 inch zone. This includes much of the lower elevations out west, not necessarily the higher elevations, but low elevations, only like a few hundred feet above sea level, and then all the way back through the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and even parts there the Northeast will likely see anywhere between 24 to 30 inches of snow, which is actually well above some of the normal averages across this area. So like I said, we just want you guys to keep that in mind if you do live across that area. And then after that, we got the 50 to 70 inches of snow. This is where I think we're going to be talking about a pretty big time winter, especially since some of these areas barely even get that much snow. And like I said, this is all given the fact that it looks like we're going to be lining up perfectly in terms of where the highest snowfall is going to occur. Because not only will the jet stream be across some of these areas, but we'll also be talking about lake effect snowfall, okay? So that's why we're expecting almost more snowfall than what we would typically see. Not only because of the jet stream, but also because of the lake effect snowfall. This is why we could see anywhere from 50 to 70 inches across this area, and of course areas around the higher elevations could also get that much snowfall too. And then last but not least, which is concerning, is the 100 plus inches of snow. That includes areas around the Great Lakes, Appalachian Mountains, higher elevations out west, including the Cascades, Rocky Mountains, and Sierra Nevadas. We want you guys to make sure you guys are ready for a very snowy winter this year. And like I said, this is all due to the jet stream and also where the lake effect snowfall is going to be happening. Now, let's go over my overall winter forecast for 2026 to 2025. First, starting off with the Northwest. Like I was saying earlier, it does look like the Pacific Northwest is going to be in for a very active winter this year, given the fact that the jet stream is almost going to be right over those areas. So make sure you guys are ready for very heavy snowfall. Make sure you guys are ready for lots of rain, especially in areas like Nevada and Northern California, where temperatures may be a little bit warmer than normal. And also make sure you guys are ready for some high winds too. That could all happen across that area, so we want you guys to make sure you're ready. Next area we got is dry and mild. Once again, the Southwest looks to be pretty dry and mild in terms of both temperatures and precipitation. So make sure you guys across that area are ready for a pretty mild and dry winter. After that, we got the average snow area. Even though the higher elevations may get more snowfall than usual, I think overall we'll top out pretty average in terms of where we should be for this area. So I think you guys in the higher elevations will have a really good winter this year, since it does look like it's going to be pretty snowy overall. Not only that, it also looks like areas across the western plains, including areas like Nebraska, Kansas, and Colorado, will be pretty snowy too. So make sure you guys are ready for that. And then we also got this frigid area up here across the Dakotas and Minnesota, where I do think a polar vortex is likely going to be making it on through here. And this is where not only are we expecting temperatures in the negatives at times, but there could also be a lot of snowfall mixed on there too. So we just really want you guys to be prepared for above average heating bills in that area, since it does appear like it's going to be a lot colder than normal. And the next area we got is the lake effect snow area. This is where we expect there to be well above normal snowfall once again, given the fact that not only will the jet stream be trending over those areas almost, allowing for cold air to surge on in farther down south, but we'll also be talking about a big difference between those water temperatures and as well as the air temperatures, which will really allow for lake effect snowfall to get ongoing. Next area we got is the severe winter storm area. This is where I do think most of our big time winter storms will occur. This includes ice storms, winter storms, potentially bringing feet of snow, and we could also be talking about even a severe weather event or two. But like I said, I am more concerned about those ice storms and as well as those winter storms that could be taking place across areas of the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and even parts there of the Atlantic, especially Pennsylvania and West Virginia. And then the next few areas we got is the some snowstorms may occur. This doesn't mean we will indeed see a snowstorm, but since cold air could make it farther down south, I would not be surprised at all if a few snowstorms did make it down towards this area. And like I said, we cannot completely roll it out, maybe even down there towards the Gulf Coast, but since temperatures look like they're going to be a little bit more near normal, I do think the Gulf Coast is going to be stormy overall. Just an indication that we might get once again a winter storm or two, but I think it's mainly going to be stormy down here if you do live across the Gulf Coast, especially in terms of severe weather. And then the last area we got, I should say, is over here across the northeast, where we are expecting nor'easters, and I do think this year is going to be a very favorable one in terms of nor'easters, so we really want you guys across that area to be ready for that, as it does look like this year is going to be a lot more favorable in terms of winter storms. So make sure you guys across the East Coast, including New York City, are ready for that, since it does look like it's going to be a pretty big one. But thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed today's winter forecast. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, as we will continue to keep you guys up to date on how the weather is even as we head into winter. And once again, you all, this is mainly just to give you guys a good idea about what we're expecting for the winter of 2025 to 2026. And once again, it doesn't mean we're going to really be seeing exactly what long-range forecasters say, but it is definitely something we'll be watching for, given the fact that it does look like some of the things this year are going to be a little bit different compared to past winters. So make sure you guys keep that in mind, and I hope you guys have a great winter out there once it comes, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Thank you all so much for watching, and goodbye.